And so
Yeah.
you need to have this full range of answers available to you to be able to stay with it. And the wave does its thing, and you just have to figure out how to ride it. I think it's really that's like the virus of the human mind to think in those binary terms, because it's, it applies to this discussion, but it applies to so many discussions that I hear, that I have, that I regularly, people tend to take a partial truth, stretch it to make it the entire truth, discount the fact that there's a partial truth also on another side of the equation, sometime in the opposite direction, and just that's how they run with it. And so rather than having a more, this is true, but also this is true, and you have to figure out to make these things go together and find the right balance, it's always they find one aspect and run with it. And then just, and I think it's just easier. I think it's just an easier, it's almost like you don't create a good dogma on nuance, but you do create a good dogma on a simple tale that has a single message with a clear-cut approach. And why do people do it? Because, nobody says I love dogma, but the reality is most people do, is because it's a bulwark against the uncertainty of life. People feel that they have something to fall back on, that is their standard answer to anything that happens. They can fall back on that thing that works some of the time. So then they think it's going to work all of the time and is this sacred thing that can never fail. And, sweet story, but that's not how life works.
Do you ever feel like you've reverse engineer a story from where you are now to make a narrative fit? Because I know that I'll fall into that sometimes, where something will, a chain of events will happen, some of it's work, some of it's luck, some of it's people came in at the right time, relationships, things like that, just all these things kind of banging together in the universe, and a couple things click and they hold together. And then based on those things that click, I'll look behind my shoulder and be like, oh yeah, that's how it all came together. I went from A to B to C, and now I'm here. And I kind of have to shake myself out of that. Do you ever kind of reverse engineer your narrative in that respect, how you've ended up here today?
I tend to be very, like, can you believe that this happened, more than, oh, of course this was going to happen kind of thing. I tend to have very, wow, I did not see that coming, where it started here, it ended here. That was weird. And it's not like you put me there at square one, I know for sure that I would get back to square D after a while. It's like, no, I feel that there's a lot of chaos surrounding it all, and there's a lot of, and again, it's like, in a way, to me, one of the metaphors that I use the most is surfing, because it kind of reminds me of like, you cannot predict the ocean exactly. I mean, you can predict some general things about tides and things, but you cannot predict each wave. Each wave is gonna do what it wants to do. You have, or you can predict to a tiny degree, but not exactly. And you have to make split-second changes where you are heavily leaning one way, then you come more to a center balance position, then you heavily lean the other. And you need to do this thing to actually stay balanced, because it's a dynamic balance. It's constantly changing. And so you need to have this full range of answers available to you to be able to stay with it. And the wave does its thing, and you just have to figure out how to ride it.